On today's DNVR Broncos podcast, we're breaking down the surprising Super Bowl odds for the Broncos and how does the Broncos stack up against other teams in the NFL and in the AFC West. I think this is going to pleasantly surprise Broncos Country. Plus, we're giving out grades for the 2023 Broncos draft class, and it all starts now. Country is yes. They believe. The nation believes in the Denver Broncos. And of course we do. And we're going to break it down here on the DNVR Broncos podcast, where we are live from the Toyota Lounge, driven by your local front range Toyota store. Zach Stevens, Henry Chisholm. You hear Dion behind the camera. And Henry is here with a tooth.
Yep. They didn't take my tooth away yesterday.
Wow, amazing.
I get to keep it. Yeah. Well, and so I didn't realize Christian has two fake teeth. He was telling me about it, and he
Christian
said,
at DNVR.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and he said it's awful. And so I was like, well, good I didn't try to get rid of it. But yeah, basically I just have to wear this Invisalign thing for like 3 weeks. And if all goes well, then I'll only need to wear these at night for the rest of my life.
For the rest of your life?
Yeah, until I die. Which,
wow.
That part.
Or until you get veneers.
Yeah, that could be before.
Yeah, that could
Who
be
knows?
positive.
Maybe I'll die soon.
Wow.
You never know.
Let's not put that out there. No, we don't want that.
There was another plane crash yesterday, too.
Yeah. Did you see what happened? Did you see the video?
Yeah. Flipped over.
It looks like it just goes in too hard and totally flips. And
don't want to go in too hard.
As of right now, everyone lived.
As of now. Yeah.
Well, I think they're in all seriousness, wishing the best of luck.
Definitely.
I think there's 3 people in critical care right now. But like, how does a plane flip?
Yeah.
And everyone survives on
seatbelts.
At least initially. I guess.
Because otherwise you'd just be bouncing around all over the place.
Oh, yeah. You would have had to.
If you have your seatbelt on, then I guess you just hang upside down. And
did you see the person that Snapchatted herself hanging upside down?
No.
That was her first instinct.
Wow.
Was to Snapchat the occasion. And she was just in her seat, hanging upside down, Snapchatting that her plane just flipped over.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't do Snapchat anymore because I'm 27.
Yeah.
But I guess I'd probably like take a picture or video or something.
Yeah, I'd have to make sure, those around me, my loved ones, friends and family are okay. And then I could probably go viral.
You would do big numbers on those videos. It is crazy.
That'd probably be my biggest tweet ever.
Nobody died.
That's what I'm saying.
Like yeah.
And did you see
awesome.
it flips over, catches on fire,
Yeah.
the wings fall
Apparently
off.
there was like a second explosion later on too. But
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. We should have a podcast about planes. Well, before I was thinking like one about trains could be fun. Because there's always all sorts of stuff going on with trains. But maybe
planes, trains, and automobiles?
I'm not that interested in cars. I did actually on the way to the orthodontist see a Supra. And it was like 2 different colors.
Yeah.
Shout out Toyota. It was really good. It got me looking at my phone for super prices.
Yeah, and see, there you go. I mean, it's snowing outside, and you can still take their sports car out on the road.
That guy did at least.
Yeah, he did. And I don't know if we need to have a planes thing. I've been flying probably more this past year than ever in my life. I'm probably just going to continue to fly a lot. I don't know if I need to think about it too much.
Ooh, F. Cholo in the chat. They made a movie about this exact situation, and it had Denzel in it.
What movie?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. But no, wasn't that...
He was... I don't know that it was this exact...
I think he was drinking on the job.
He was. There was some sort of like trauma or something.
Yeah. And I think they crash landed safely, but then I think he was busted for, again, drinking on the job.
As he probably should.
It was like...
Don't drink it.
You're a hero, but also like... You kind of put yourself in a really bad spot.
Yesterday, Kanye tweeted that real friends let friends drink and drive.
Yeah, probably don't take any.
Probably don't listen
any
to
advice
Kanye.
from.
I bet.
I don't know if I would have even
even
brought it. I'm uncomfortable. Jose already says in our playing conversation that was an uncomfortable thumbs up.
Oh, I thought that
can't
was
even
about my
imagine the thumbs up that or the lack of thumbs up after that one.
Yeah, I bet even Kanye would say, "Don't drink and fly."
Wow, you keep bringing them up. I got to move this conversation.
Okay.
I got to move this conversation to greener grass because Henry, last year, what was the vibe surrounding the Broncos 1 year ago from right now?
Not good.
To put it lightly.
Yeah, no, we were all. Let's see, it's the middle of February, so Bo Nix was not even considered close to a first round pick. Let's see. At this point, you had Caleb Williams will go number 1.
Yep.
Drake May will be number 2. There were some crazy people out there saying like Jaden Daniels in the first round could be a good idea.
That was me.
Yep, that I'm sure. And then later on, he kind of rose up the draft board. Who am I forgetting there? Oh, JJ McCarthy.
Yep.
JJ McCarthy. You had like the 3 first rounders, the 3 guys who wound up in the first round, who everybody's like, oh, they're no good. And the Broncos picking 12, thought there'd be no shot at an actual quarterback. Unless you we were just starting to talk about Bo Nix, I think.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember. Did anybody at the Super Bowl last year bring up Bo?
It's a great question. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Like
I
Chris
remember
Sims,
at
I
the
don't
Super
think
Bowl
so.
last year, the biggest thing that happened was J.J. McCarthy pretty much saying he wants to go to the Broncos.
Yeah, that was a thing. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, it was a dark time because there was no path forward with a quarterback.
Yep.
And the team was also bad.
Yeah, and of course, as Jose points out, there was Penix talk coming on.
Yep.
I think this is when Todd was identifying him as his quarterback. And then also Russell Wilson was still on the team. Now, it seemed pretty obvious that they were
when
going to
did they
move
cut
on
him?
from him. They cut him a week after the Combine,
Okay.
I believe. And so the Combine's next week. So 50 weeks ago, a year ago-ish, Broncos moved on from Russell Wilson. They still had him on the books. And in the words of Sean Payton, how did he describe it a month ago at the end of season press conference? He was like, it was dreary, dark,
It was.
miserable. And then he looks to the media and is like, help me out with some more words about how terrible of a situation we
terrible.
were in 1 year ago from right now. And they were so bad that the Super Bowl odds 1 year ago reflected that, Henry. What were the Super Bowl odds last year?
So beginning of the season, the Broncos were 150-1, which those were not good. That was better than the Patriots, the Panthers, and the Giants. It was tied with the Raiders, the Titans, and the Commanders.
So fourth worst odds
Yes.
at 150-1.
Good thing we didn't make that bet.
Yeah, well, yeah, you would have lost whatever money you placed, I
You
guess.
would've.
What was, do you have the Eagles?
Eagles.
The only team that would have won?
12-1. So that was fourth best, tied with the Lions.
Okay, so
Yep.
they're
Behind the Ravens, the 49ers, and the Chiefs.
49ers, talk
Yep.
about an absolute terrible
Yep.
season this past year. So Broncos were tied with who?
The Raiders, the Titans, and the Commanders.
Okay, so two of those teams hit on rookie quarterbacks
Yep.
and greatly exceeded those expectations. So 150-1 shows you how much of a turnaround the Broncos have had in just one season, because this year, the Broncos Super Bowl odds, we're going to get to them in just a second. But before we do, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at, right here in front of me, Ice Shaker. Right in front of me, we got the Denver Broncos Ice Shaker on set. And if you, I'll start that one over. We're going with Ice Shaker. We got the Denver Broncos Ice Shaker on set right here. And if you're looking for a blender bottle, a pre-workout bottle, a post-workout bottle, or how about a little cocktail shaker, Ice Shaker's got you covered. And if you use the code ALLCITY25, they're going to hook you up with 25% off your order over at iceshaker.com. They're officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB to give you a great gift, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for one of your friends that's a diehard anything fan, because they are partnered with all of those professional sports leagues and college leagues as well. So check them out. Make sure to get the Broncos one since you're a Broncos fan. IceShaker.com and use that code AllCity25 when you check out for 25% off your order. That's IceShaker.com, AllCity25 for 25% off for the best ice shakers out there.
And shout out to UC Health, because this podcast is brought to you by UC Health, which is where more athletes go than any other Colorado provider. Health is always a good thing. I tried one of those acai bowls this morning.
Yeah,
had never had one of those before.
Yeah, what'd you think?
It was good. I don't know that it's sustainable because it was like $12 first of all.
Yeah,
and it's like, so you can't make this like a routine thing. And then like there is a lot of sugar in them. But in terms of like
Makes
low
them
calories
delicious.
and stuff that's good for you, I'm not sure if you can like at the grocery store buy the acai.
Yeah, they sell them low packets.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna keep an eye on that stuff. But UC Health always supports you being healthy and us being healthy. You can learn more about living like there is a tomorrow at uchealth.org. For more info, UC Health, live extraordinary.
And shout out to everyone joining us in the Toyota chat right now. Shout out to Henry's Tooth as well. There was a tooth fund, which I think we might just need to give the money back, right?
It was $1.99. Half of it probably goes to YouTube. So
So we owe you $1. We appreciate you guys tuning in with us. Hit us with a thumbs up when you're tuning in. And let's.
also, this was $900.
Oh, so it wasn't free. So
Yeah,
let's
so we
let's,
could-
let's
yeah.
raise some money. Let's get a
Yeah.
tooth fund going on.
888 or 98 to go. There we go. Half goes to YouTube. $8.99.
Let's dive back into this Broncos conversation and look at where the Broncos Super Bowl odds stand now, because when I saw this, I was shocked. And not because I don't believe, but because Henry, the country hasn't believed in the Broncos for a decade now, and they do. Let's see these Super Bowl odds right now, courtesy of Bet365 Broncos Super Bowl odds. Broncos checking in at plus 4,000. So what is that?
40 to 1.
40 to 1.
Yep.
So a third, almost a fourth better, or 4 times better.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Almost 4 times better than last year. They're tied with the Minnesota Vikings, who went, what, 14-3 this past season?
Yeah.
With Sam Darnold, their plan B at quarterback. That's where the Broncos are checking in right now. So the Eagles are first. Then you've got the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, the Lions, then the San Francisco 49ers, the Cincinnati Bengals, Green Bay Packers, Washington Commanders, Los Angeles Rams, tied with the Chargers. And then you have the Houston Texans. And right before the Broncos and Vikings, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers spotting in right there. So Broncos, 14th best Super Bowl odds right now,
Yeah.
at 4 times better than last year. Let's just take a second to embrace how good of a turnaround this has been in 1 year.
Yeah, no, totally. Like you said, they're 4 times better than they were last year, which I guess it's kind of tough to read too much into that. But yeah, no, they're definitely in a much better place. I think it makes sense. Like 14 teams make the playoffs. They make the playoffs. One of the 14 at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's right where you should be. And the odds are always going to be better for... Usually you have the tier on the top that are really good teams. Those are the teams that are actual like contenders. One of those 3 or 4 or 5 should absolutely win the Super Bowl. After that, though, it's all kind of a gamble. And it's a lot easier to gamble on something that's unknown. You know, whereas like the Vikings, better team than the Broncos last year. They only lost 3 times. But at the same time, you kind of know what you're going to get. And you throw J.J. McCarthy in there so they have a little bit of randomness. But with the Broncos, it just feels like, hey, they're right here. They could make another jump like they did last year. Like the possibility is there. So, yeah, it makes sense. Right there, almost dead center middle of the pack. That's probably where they earned their way up.
And we like our friends over at Bet365. But there's other outlets there that have the Broncos even higher up on this list. I saw one as high as 11th right there, so almost top 10. So to go from like bottom 5 to top 10 in the matter of just 8 months or so is incredible. Those odds were plus 2,800. So if you want to bet on this, you definitely want to do it over at Bet365 because you just get so much better odds there. So this means if you place a $10 bet, you're going to win, what is it, $400 on the Broncos to win the Super Bowl. Now, we're not necessarily saying that the Broncos are winning the Super Bowl this year with these odds, but certainly there's a chance. I mean, last year, the odds makers told us there was zero chance of it happening. Now, if you're in the top half and in the top 10, right around there, there's a chance there. And it just shows, let's pull that up again to see who the other teams the Broncos are surrounded by, Henry, to just get an idea of how the country is viewing the Broncos right now. Like we said, they're tied with the Minnesota Vikings, who were 14-3 last year. They were on the doorstep of being the number 1 seed in the NFC. Literally came down to the final game of the season for them. So that's how they're viewed, or maybe that's, how they're viewing the Vikings as well. They're one spot behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Henry, and that's a team who I think the Broncos should be ranked higher.
Really?
I do.
Higher than the Vikings? They play each other next year, right? Don't they?
Not necessarily. I believe they do.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's home or away off the top of my head.
I think it's in Minnesota this time.
I'm not necessarily saying they should be ahead of the Vikings. I think both of those teams should be ahead of the Buccaneers.
Why?
Because I think the Bucs, we've seen what they are. And we know what they are. And what is it, a 10-win team?
Yeah.
The Broncos just made a big jump. I mean, they're consistently a 9 or 10-win team. And it's not like they're going to go get a quarterback that's going to skyrocket them. They've got Baker, who had a great year last year, yet it was still a 10-win team.
Yeah. The difference, though, is that they're in the NFC. And anybody, like the Eagles were by far the best team, but also you look at, like the Rams. The Rams made it to the NFC Championship game, and once you make it there, like there's a chance that you just get in. Saying once you're in the Super Bowl, obviously you have a chance to win. So I think that all those NFC teams probably get a bump because it just isn't that tough of a path. Like for the Broncos, you look at like the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bills. You could probably include the Bengals if you want, like maybe the Texans back. But there's at least 3 teams. You're probably going to have to beat at least 2 of them to get in. Whereas on the other side, if you want to give the Lions the benefit of the doubt, then maybe there's 2.
Yeah.
But
I think there's 2. I would give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. But at the same time, like they haven't proven they can take that step. And maybe the Bills and Ravens haven't either.
But to your point, because I think you're spot on with this, can we pull those odds back up again? Let's look at the quarterbacks in the NFC. You've got Jalen Hurts of the top teams. You've got Jalen Hurts. You've got Jared Goff. You've got Brock Purdy. You've got Jordan Love. You've got Jaden Daniels. You've got Matthew Stafford, all in this. And then Baker Mayfield. These are in the top 14 teams. There's 7 of them in the NFC, 7 of them in the AFC. Those are the quarterbacks. How many of those scare the hell out of you?
Honestly, none. Like again, I think the 3 quarterbacks in the NFL who really scare me are the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Bills.
So that's fair. So but in the NFC, I do think that Jalen Hurts is an incredible quarterback.
Yep.
So I would put him in that conversation.
I put Burrow in there too, if we're
Sure, yeah. But just on the NFC right now, just to see how many like quarterbacks that scare you on that conference. Jared Goff, game to game, he scares me. But like, man, over court, we haven't seen anything from him like deep in the playoffs that would scare you. So no Brock Purdy, no Jordan Love, no Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I'd put him in that conversation right now from what he did and projecting where he's going to go. Baker Mayfield, no. So Henry, you have 0 when I asked that
really scared me.
Yeah, and that's totally fair.
I'd say none.
And I have 2 maybe. Now let's do the same thing for the 7 teams that are in the top 14 of the Super Bowl odds in the AFC. I'm just going to name them. You say yes or no when I name them. Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
Josh Allen.
Yep.
Joe Burrow.
He's right on the edge. Maybe you give it to him and Hurts.
Give me a break. He's in mine. He's in mine for sure.
Well, Hurts is in yours too, so yeah, makes sense.
So Joe Burrow's in there for me. Justin Herbert.
No.
Yep, I agree with you. No. CJ Stroud.
No.
I agree with that. And then Bo Nix is in this conversation.
No.
Okay, that's. I was asking. I don't think the rest of the country would put him in there either. But that's 4 bona fide. Well, to me, without question, that's 3 bona fide to you without question. With then Joe Burrow being one of those 4 as well. So that just shows you right there, to your point, Henry, why Super Bowl odds should be a little more difficult in the AFC than the NFC.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, I mean, if the Broncos were in the NFC, then they'd probably be, right there, probably with the Rams, but they're not. And so
I like that comment. Let's look at that. Let's see where the Broncos would be if they were in the NFC. I think... So let's start with the Vikings. Should the Broncos have the same Super Bowl odds as the Vikings? Again, I'll say it again, who were 14-3 last year, 1 game away from hosting every single playoff game in the NFC, but we don't know who their quarterback is this year right now.
I mean, again, it's kind of like the Bucs, where it's like they've been good. They've overachieved. Like, you look at the records in 1-score games, all those sorts of things. It's every year, and that's just a testament to good coaching and all that, which you don't want to discount. But it does feel like at some point, just playing good, clean football over and over again, you just got to get more than that if you're going to make it over the top. And so, like, there's a chance that JJ McCarthy shows up and plays great. I would bet against it. Like, he, to me, is just going to be a rookie quarterback. So if we're talking who's going to have the most wins next year, I'd take the Vikings. Like, I still think they're a better team, but in terms of like chance to win a Super Bowl, that's where I'd take the Broncos, just because like Bo Nix could take a step, and we've seen how close they are. If they make another jump, they're right there.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I would actually put the Broncos. I think the Vikings are always going to be good with Kevin O'Connell, because he's clearly proven he's an incredible coach. What he's done with different quarterbacks, and when one's a plan B quarterback and then has to become plan A and he goes 14-3, incredible.
Yep.
But it's about the quarterback position, Henry, and what you said, like Bo Nix could realistically take a step from having one of the best rookie seasons of all time to being a great borderline elite quarterback. That's not crazy. Patrick Mahomes' second year in the NFL, he won MVP with 50 touchdowns. It was insane. So those jumps can happen. And I think that's more likely than, like you said, JJ McCarthy coming out and being that type of quarterback, or Sam Darnold going back and getting paid a lot more money, being able to do what he did last year for an entire another season. What Bo Nix did last year, we can't forget. It was a second or third best rookie quarterback season ever, like behind CJ Stroud in some areas, but not even all areas. I think Justin Herbert actually had one more, or Cam Newton had a couple more total touchdowns as a rookie. But what Bo Nix did was incredible, so I would give the nod to the Broncos there. I see why it's close because of the big question mark that the Vikings have, but they're also in a tough division too. I mean, the NFC is really is much easier than the AFC, but the NFC North is pretty difficult, just like the AFC West.
Yeah, it is. It is tough. I think at one point, I want to say the Lions, the Vikings, and Packers were like 27-2 against teams that weren't in the division.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, they are really good, and I think they're I'd say certainly better than the AFC West. Just when you go 1 for 1.
I think it is the best division in football.
Lions and Chiefs.
Last year.
I'd probably take the Lions over the Chiefs. And maybe
Fair.
that's too far. If anything, it's a tie. You have the Vikings and the Chargers. Like, again, very similar, probably. Good regular season team, kind of flames out late. But the Vikings also 14-3.
Yeah, better.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then Packers and Broncos. I'd love to see the Broncos be better. Packers, the consistency.
Last time the two teams played.
It's true. But didn't they have the same record last year? And the difference being the Packers underachieved and got there, and the Broncos overachieved. So if you're just betting on like regression to averages, you'd probably say Packers better.
Yeah.
Then Bears, Raiders toss up. So maybe it is pretty close. I'd still probably give the edge to NFC North.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Raiders just absolutely tanked this conversation.
I mean, I guess the Bears.
I'd way rather have the Bears situation.
Yeah, but again, like that's just random. Like if Caleb Williams is just the same guy we saw last year, you're right there with the Raiders.
No, Caleb Williams
Really?
is so much better than the Raiders quarterback situation.
Yes, but at the same time, like
even with a little disappointing season last year. I mean, he was still good.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have like a disastrous rookie season.
Okay.
Himself.
Yeah, that's fair.
He got sacked a ton.
Yeah. And if
Sean Payton would say that's on him.
you think he was better than Gardner Minshew?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Let's throw that in the chat.
Okay,
Who was better?
okay.
Gardner Minshew.
Who was
just
better last year?
Gardner Minshew or Caleb Williams? Let's see what people say.
Yep.
So yeah. But point is, two great divisions right there.
Yeah.
So you could give the nod to the Vikings or the Broncos. I give to the Broncos. I think you're going to give the nod to the Vikings. Is that right?
No, I go Broncos.
You go Broncos too. Okay,
yeah,
boom. There
probably.
we go. Let's look at this next team here in the Tampa Bay Bucks. Henry, the past 2 years in the post-Tom Brady era, the Buccaneers went 9-8 and 10-7, and I just think that's who they are. They're a 9.5 win team. That's probably where I'd probably set their. Yeah, that's probably where I'd set their over under. Maybe even at 9, because they're going to be fine. They're going to always be on the cusp of like, is Baker truly our guy? Is Todd Bowles truly our guy? It's a fine place to be. I mean, I guess in Tampa Bay, if you're making the playoffs, it's probably a winning situation just because of the lack of a football town that is. But to me, it's almost like just being 8-8 every season. And I guess since they're making the playoffs and winning their division because they're in an absolutely trash division, it's successful. But I don't know. I think this is exactly who they are. They're a 9-win team that's going to lose at home in the first round of the playoffs, just like they did last year, just like they did the year before. I'm just so underwhelmed by like their Super Bowl odds. So I would go Broncos here.
Like if the Broncos were in the NFC, we're still doing that.
Yeah, just comparing the teams. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Again, it's just the randomness for the Broncos because you don't know what you have in Bo Nix still. Like, there's a chance that he really is good, whereas you've kind of figured out what the Bucks are. If it's similar to the Vikings. If I was just betting on who's going to have more wins, I'm taking the Buccaneers because they just seem consistent. They have the upside with a good defense, some weapons on offense. But in terms of winning a Super Bowl, Broncos, they get to roll the dice where it feels like the Bucks. The dice have already been rolled, and they are what they are.
We've got a little good banter in the Toyota
good.
chat. And Henry, some people taking your side, some people taking my side with this Caleb Williams or Gardner Minshew talk here. We have Zachary Gardner who says Caleb was 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks. Gardner was 2,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, 10 picks. Say no more, Zachary. I think case closed. But then you have Lawrence comes in and says Caleb cannot read a defense, period. So some good back and forth there.
Yes. Also, our good friend John in the chat, geez, Hank, Bo is good. Baker's good too. The question is whether Bo is great. And that's where there's a chance that like he does turn out to be great. Whereas Baker, we kind of know what he is.
Baker, somehow, the Bucs had the 4th best scoring offense in the NFL last year. Baker put up incredible stats, 71% completion, 4,500 passing yards, 41 touchdowns. He did lead the league with 16 interceptions, but a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio kind of covers that up. Threw for over 260 yards per game, over 106 passer rating, over a 60 QBR. He had a phenomenal season. The Bucs offense was great, yet they're 10-7. Like, that's what I'm saying. They're just like, what does Baker have to do for them to be a 13-win team? He had 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns last year. And what we know about Baker is he has great years, and then he has years where he's the 3rd-string quarterback on a team getting cut midway through the season. I just can't plan on Baker consistently being as good as he was last year.
Yeah, I mean, probably not.
Yeah. Here's doing some deep diving.
Yeah, I wonder. Beat the Lions. Yeah, so they played the NFC North. So that'd be part of the reason they didn't have a great record. Played the Ravens and the Chiefs somehow. So they would have played the AFC North. No, they played the AFC West. Of course, they're NFC South. Which, again, that's a tough division to play. I mean...
Oh, we have the head-to-head just last year.
Exactly.
When the Broncos were at their worst.
Yes.
They got their first win.
And when the Bucs lost Chris Godwin, right? Wasn't that game? Or was he out before?
I don't think he was hurt in the Broncos game.
Who did they lose?
He was
they
hurt
lost
after.
somebody in that game. He was hurt after because that was week 3.
Broncos lost Alex Singleton, but not really
did.
because he played the rest of the game. But that's when he tore his ACL.
Was Mike Evans out that game? I thought somebody was missing.
It was only week 3.
Yeah. Well, again, they won. That's what matters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say schedule is probably part of it. And I bet if we go, John's upset, unsure about Bo. Again, he's good, but is he Super Bowl good? Because there's just a big difference.
Here's what I'll say, because
we know that Bo is going to be like one of the 15 or 20 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Like that's just kind of where he sits. But he needs to prove that he is top 12, top 10, top 5, whatever it might be, if they're actually going to win a Super Bowl. Whereas Baker, we know exactly where he is, and that's like 10th or 12th right in there. It's a good spot to be.
Well, it's a fine spot. It's not Super Bowl spot.
Not if you pay him.
Right.
Like if you're gonna give him all the money, then you're gonna need more. But that's a bigger problem with the NFL. That's why half these teams are just underachieving, is because they paid too much for quarterbacks that they could get. Like, what does Baker get?
I think 30.
30?
I think it was like almost 3 years, 100 million. Might have been exactly that or something.
So if you go get whatever journeyman for $10 million and spend $20 million to go get whatever other pieces, imagine if they hadn't signed him, they had gotten in the Saquon Barkley bidding war. Again, that's $12 million. You still got more to spend. Like, eventually the quarterback market's gonna get fixed because it won't keep going the way it is.
I don't know. We've been saying that for like a decade now.
Yeah, but that's the same thing you guys said when I was talking about the running back market a couple of years ago.
No, running back and wide receiver, those, you are right. Those do change,
Yeah.
and those will have their cycles. We've been saying this about the quarterback position, I mean, for over a decade now. Like when Brock Osweiler went to Houston and got, what was it, 16 million? It was like, 18 million. It was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This has got to correct
and that was at the
some
beginning
point.
of it. And so now we're
But
getting...
people were already saying then, like, if Brock Osweiler's getting 18 million a year, this has got to correct itself.
It will,
now
though.
we're at 60 million per year.
Yeah.
They compete against the quarterback in the league. Like wide receivers and running backs, like they compete for salary, nothing against the quarterback.
But eventually, like, I guess we don't know Sam Darnold's contract yet, but like the Kirk Cousins of the world won't be getting that contract. Like,
Yeah, but they're
there's
not
the
elite.
Tua conversation. No, the elite guys will keep getting paid what they're paid. That'll keep going up.
Yeah.
But it's just that there's that group from like the whatever 5th best quarterback to the 20th best quarterback, 15th best quarterback. They're being carried by that elite group, and eventually that's going to splinter off. Teams will realize that, you know, who else is in there?
I've got one for you.
Who?
And let's continue this conversation after I give a shout out to our friends over at Bet365. We're talking about the Broncos Super Bowl odds, and if you want to get in, like I said, Bet365 has the most generous Super Bowl odds you can get for the Broncos. So if you're curious, if you want 4,000 plus 4,000, that's 40 to 1 odds. You can get that over at Bet365, and you can get and place this bet with bonus money. So what you do, deposit $10 over at Bet365 after using the code DNVR365. Place a $5 bet. You're going to get $100 in bonus bets when you sign up. If you place a $100 bet on the Broncos to win the Super Bowl in bonus bets, you're going to win $4,000 if they go on to win the Super Bowl this year. And our friends over at Bet365 have that offer for you when you use the code DNVR365 over at Bet365. And of course, use that code DNVR365. Deposit $10, place a $5 bet, you get $100 in bonus bets. Win or lose, bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you're somebody who has a gambling problem, once help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
And also, check out Game Time. The Lakers are in town on Saturday. If you're trying to go to that, Game Time is going to have the best prices, as always. Looks like you can get in for $198 right now. It's a lot of money, but that's just what it costs to see Luka and the Lakers. And if you go anywhere else, it'd be more expensive.
What day's that game?
Saturday. Ooh. That's going to be a good one. Yeah, also being on Saturday makes it a little more expensive.
Yeah.
The Wild are here next Friday. That's going to be an incredible game. The Devils are here around then. That won't be as good as the Wild game, but also good. All this sort of stuff on Game Time. You guys should all be buying your tickets there. That's where we go. And if you want to use the code DNVR, you can get $20 off. Remember, it's not gametime.com. It's gametime.co. Just C-O. head over there. They've got all sorts of perks. They've got like their picks, their best deals, all that sort of stuff. Ads are included in the prices. And you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Okay, so let's continue this conversation because I like where it's going. Let me throw a couple of quarterbacks that I think fit the criteria you're saying isn't happening anymore. Justin Herbert. $50 million. He's not the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. He's at next tier.
He might be because he's still young, so there's like the projectability with it.
But every quarterback, when they hit their first contract, is going to be 25 years old and still young.
But there's just like a different list. So like Dak Prescott getting $60 million a year.
There you go. That's exactly who I'm talking about.
After him is Joe Burrow is at 55. That's good. That's a good deal. Jordan Love at 55. That's not a good deal. Trevor Lawrence at 55. Again, that's the tough part. That's like the Herbert thing where it's a rookie contract. He's the first overall pick. Will he figure it out?
Yep.
That might always just be that price. Tua at 53, Goff at 53.
See, right now you're proving my point right now.
Lamar at 52. What
you're
do you
just
mean?
reading all these guys, proving my point.
What do you mean?
How all of these guys are getting paid.
No, I agree they're getting paid.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a list that says
You
they're
said
getting
it's
paid.
going to stop.
There we go.
I'm saying it's not going to stop.
Well, but
Because everyone
we
just
agree
keeps
on
doing
what's
it.
already happened. But see,
Yeah,
but
we
I
agree on
think-
what's going to happen. I just think it's going to continue to happen.
And I don't. I think that eventually, because all it's going to take is one. Because once a Jordan Love hits the market, or like a Dak Prescott, I don't think that if he hits the market, you're going to be getting a $60 million a year contract. Like, I know that there are teams who are desperate, but all it takes is one of those guys to hit the market and not get that deal. And it might not be the first one who actually doesn't get the extension, who hits the market. Like, you might have a couple of those guys get signed, but as soon as one of them winds up, Dak goes and gets $45 million instead of 60, that's when all the negotiations change for all the other quarterbacks. Because once you hit like that one turning point, everything just changes. Just have to wait for it to happen. I thought it could be with Tua. I thought the Dolphins could move on from Tua. Unlikely, of course, because it's dangerous to be the team that takes that risk. But once somebody does it, things could really turn.
But no one's ever done it. And
No, but somebody will eventually.
I don't think so. And if
Okay.
someone does let that guy hit the market, you mentioned like there's so many quarterback desperate teams in the NFL. Another team, there's going to be a bidding war. 10 teams are going to be
Still?
in on this guy. And instead of Dak signing a $60 million per year contract with the team, he's going to get $65, $70 million. And I'm not saying that's right, because I agree with you that you should. I'm all for paying elite quarterbacks elite money. You get really in a bad spot when you pay a 15th quarterback in the NFL elite money, which is what's happening right now in the NFL. So I'm not saying it's good. I just think this is such a quarterback desperate league where if you are a good quarterback, you're going to get paid. You're going to get the bag. Just like one example that we're approaching right now, which is going to be fascinating. Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
There's reports over this past week that say he's going to get $60 million
be horrible. He's
per
not worth
year.
He's not worth it. You can't watch the games and say he's worth it. But again, like you go
But if
through,
he does, then he does. Like,
oh yeah,
and that's
again,
what I
like,
think is going to
there's-
happen.
There's a winner's curse, but one of those guys won't. And as soon as that happens, things can shift. And I think it's going to happen because sometimes these deals don't work out. Kyler Murray has turned things around. For a second there, it was like, is that the worst contract? Obviously, Russell Wilson, we know what happened there, and everybody's like,
Kyler's is a bad contract.
still?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, $46 million a year. I wouldn't say that's any worse than, let's see, who else is in there? Again, like Trevor Lawrence at 50. I would rather have Kyler at 46 than Trevor Lawrence at 55, But eventually those things go away because, like Deshaun Watson, they regret that. Russell Wilson, they regret that. Kirk Cousins, they regret that. And this list, as it grows and grows and grows, it's going to make teams not want to gamble, and somebody's going to pull the trigger. And it might not be the 49ers with Brock Purdy. I think it absolutely should be. But eventually somebody just pulls the rug out from under it, and then all of it just topples.
Yeah, but you're just talking about how it just continues to happen. Example after example after
Again,
example.
that's the past.
But it's also going to be the future.
I don't.
Like
It's not a
nothing in
guarantee.
the past
though.
points to this. Bo Nix is going to be, if he continues to be anywhere close to what he was as a rookie, he's going to be a $65, $70 million quarterback. And you know what? The Broncos are going to be happy to pay him that money because it means they've got their guy.
I mean, unless it happens before then, because eventually that's economics. It's how it works. But like there is a winner's curse where it's like if somebody winds up paying that price, and every one of these guys winds up overpaid because if you're going to, if there are 32 teams bidding, the only way to get the quarterback is to overpay. Like we don't need to get too deep into that, but that's why all these guys overpay. Eventually, one of these guys just slips through, and that's what's going to shift the whole market. And I wonder who it was for the running backs, who was the first one who let walk.
But running backs and wide receivers and every other position is different.
But markets are the same. Economics, it's all the same.
But it's not, because every single year the salary cap goes up. And it just keeps getting more. So there's more money, and then teams are able to just continue to invest more in the quarterback.
Look at it in terms of percentages, because by percentage it's massive. Because before, again, the stat was whatever. No quarterback has ever been to a Super Bowl while making 12.5% of the team's salary cap, other than Tom Brady. I think Patrick Mahomes wound up doing it as well. Now you've got, I don't have it pulled up, I think there are now 15 quarterbacks making more than that 12.5%. And you look at who's going to Super Bowls. Again, Jalen Hurts just won one. So there you go. I guess he would now be the next guy on that list. There are 3, but you go back through, Matthew Stafford was below that cutoff. Who else has been there? Joe Burrow, obviously rookie contract. There's that whole list of quarterbacks on the rookie contracts who made it with Russell Wilson. Brock Purdy would have been on there. But you just don't see teams have success unless you really have one of the very, very, not even like 5 best. It's Patrick Mahomes, it's Tom Brady, and now it's Jalen Hurts too.
Yeah, you just completely, I think, crushed your own argument by bringing in Jalen Hurts and showing that the most recent Super Bowl team did exactly what you said can't happen.
But again,
you can't pay your quarterback that much and then go win unless you have an all-time great. And I really like Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is not an all-time great.
But half the league now pays those guys. Now half the league has been over that threshold. And we're still seeing, for the most part, it's the teams below that threshold who are getting there. Those teams and the teams that have Hall of Fame type quarterbacks. And if you had a smart GM, you would be able to look at all these trends and these numbers and say, this is not how you win football games. It's just how you keep your job, because it looks bad to do it. Eventually, somebody is going to say, we're not going to do it. And the Cowboys had a chance with Jerry Jones, because he's one of the few people who gets to make those decisions and also has job security. They decided to pay Dak. And honestly, Dak might be good enough that you just do it. He's kind of right on that line. But it's eventually the market all the data says you do not do this. It's a bad idea.
Yet all the actual data, what history has told us, what teams continue.
Yes, they do it. We know they do it.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. They do it. There's examples where the Cowboys could have moved on, but they didn't. There's examples of maybe you shouldn't pay a quarterback this much money on the cap because it's tough to win. Well, the most recent example is the Eagles, who just did it. That's why teams are going to continue to pay quarterbacks. So, Henry, I'll let you have the last word, but let's move this conversation on, because I have one more fun quarterback question to ask you here, and I truly have no idea which way you're going to go.
Also, let me double check this before I say it. Jalen Hurts. Oh, he had a $13 million cap hit because he's early in his contract. So he was at 5%. So he isn't even part of it. The stat still stands that you cannot win without somebody that good, even though half the league is doing this. Half the league says, we got to pay it. It just doesn't work. And eventually you're going to wind up with somebody who, Daniel Jones is another example in the chat. Like
that is my point, that quarterbacks are still getting paid, Zach, and that's not going to change.
I'm not arguing about what has happened. That's all obvious.
And I'm saying what's still going to happen. Quarterbacks are still going to be getting paid
but all
crazy
you're saying
amounts.
Is what already happened.
No. Quarterbacks are still going to get paid. That is the future.
I doubt it. It's going to tumble at some point.
Okay. Well, we're just going to have to disagree on that one. But last point, when looking at the Bucs and Broncos, who would you want right now, from right now to the rest of their career? Baker Mayfield or Bo Nix?
Oh, Bo, absolutely.
Yep. I totally agree. And the higher ceiling there. And that's why I would take, let's pull up those Super Bowl odds one more time here. That's why I would take the Broncos over the Bucs in this conversation. And heck, I'll go one step further. I'd take I'll go 2 steps further. Actually, I go 3 steps further. I'd take the Broncos over the Texans. I'd take the Broncos over the Chargers. And I take the Broncos over the Rams. The Rams, who knows? They might trade Matthew Stafford. They don't want to give him a new contract, which he wants a new contract. They want him to restructure. He wants more money right now. After seeing what the Commanders did this past year, I don't think I'd be able to put the Broncos over the Commanders. I'd probably put the Broncos over the Packers. I'm really low on the Packers right there. And then, heck, I mean, the Bengals, they do have an MVP level quarterback, so I understand, I guess, why they're so high on this list is because of the potential they could have if they just get a decent defense, but they are nowhere close to a decent defense right now. So honestly, I think the country's buying into the Broncos, and they're still too low on them. Am I crazy for putting them above the Bucs, the Texans, the Chargers, and the Rams?
You can take your pick. I mean, again, NFC teams are NFC, like they have that easy path. You go through, if the Rams just run it back, they obviously could make it. They just made it to the NFC Championship game. The Texans in this version have already won 2 playoff games. On top of that, they're going to get a home playoff game to start the playoffs next year. The Broncos are playing on the road almost regardless of what happens. I mean, the odds to win the division, I'm not sure if those are up yet, but they can't be better than 7-1. So if you make it, best case scenario, I guess, you win in the first round on the road. I guess best case, all 3 road teams win in the first round. You're the 5th seed, so you could potentially have 2 more home games after that. But again, that's very unlikely.
Yeah.
When you look at the Texans, that's just not really an issue. When you look at the Bucs, that's shouldn't be an issue if they're a decent team who's actually competing for a Super Bowl. So you could put them in front. The Rams will probably do something crazy. Like if they trade Cooper Kupp, all of a sudden their Super Bowl odds should drop. And honestly, that might be factored in already, which is why they're only 28-1, even though they just played in an NFC Championship game. Right. As of now, though, like I certainly don't have any beef with it. I wouldn't say you're crazy to have them right after the Commanders. Although putting them in front of the Texans would be pretty tough to do.
You think so? I think that'd be easy to. I mean, they have won playoff games in back-to-back years. That's fair. And someone in the Twitter chat put me in check saying the Chargers beat the Broncos twice this past
also
year.
True.
So that's fair. So
Yep.
I mean, I think they're right around the right area, but I think you can make an argument for them being in the top 10
Do you
right
know
now.
who's behind them?
Who's behind them? Every other team that wasn't on that list.
I know it's a lot of teams to think about.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. We've got the Bears are kind of right there, right behind the Broncos.
Just
the Cowboys
randomness.
are right behind the Broncos
interesting.
as well. You have the Seahawks that are a decent amount behind the Broncos, like plus 1,000 more behind them. The Cardinals, Falcons, Raiders. Raiders are significantly behind the Broncos, but those are the teams that are kind of just behind the Broncos. The Bears, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks.
Yeah. I mean, Bears are just up there because, again, same thing as Bo. Like, second year could be a massive leap, and then who knows. Cowboys are interesting because their odds are always going to be shorter than they should be.
Right.
Just because so many people like the Cowboys and they get so many bets.
Yep.
I wouldn't have been surprised, though, if they were up there, like even in front of the Rams, just because they've got the talent. We've seen the defense just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like 1996 or whatever was the last time they made an NFC Championship game.
Wow.
So at some point, you just have to.
Were you alive?
No.
Wow.
If it was 1996, which I could be wrong about. So I wouldn't put them up any higher. But I could see the argument for it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I think the Broncos are at like the lowest spot that they need to be and probably given a few spots higher. Okay, Henry, before we get out of here, we are continuing to grade the Broncos draft classes from over the past half decade. Maybe we even go decade next week. Yesterday, we did the 2024 draft. We both gave them good grades. What grade does George Payton get for the 2023 draft? And let me read you the players that the Broncos got 2 drafts ago. They did not have a first-round pick, so they went Marvin Mims in the second round, Drew Sanders in the third round, Riley Moss in the third round, J.L. Skinner in the sixth round, and Alex Forsyth in the seventh round. This was only a 5-man draft class. So before we hand out grades, Henry, I got to ask you, how do you grade this when they don't have a first-round pick and they only have 5 picks? Do you grade it just based off, like, did they hit their second-round pick? Or do you grade it as, like, okay, I'm comparing it to the Chiefs draft who had, a first-round pick? Okay.
You can't do that. I mean, it's just based on the
you
value you get with the picks that you have. Yeah. Because otherwise you'd be throwing in, like, the Russell Wilson trade into this grade, which that gets its own separate grade, an F.
See, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to grade it that way. But, I mean, to be fair, you don't have a first-round pick because you did make that trade, so the trade could be included in that.
If you wanted to do, like, draft grades plus Russell Wilson grades, but the draft grades are just better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just stick with the players that were drafted. How are you going here? You want to go player by player first?
Yeah.
So Marvin Mims with the 63rd pick, so the very last pick in the second round, the Broncos got Marvin Mims.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good pick. I don't know. It's tough because you got one of the best returners in the NFL. But receiving wise, like, you got some flashes, and the flashes are exciting, but there's almost no consistency there. And plenty of players have put together 2 really good weeks of football, especially at receiver. Like, that's a position in particular where things are so hit and miss, especially for a receiver, a speed receiver, or somebody who's just trying to get downfield. You also look and say, like, Tank Dell, 6 picks later. He was the next receiver off the board. After that, you've got Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman a couple picks later. Josh Downs after that. I'll give the pick like a B, but it's just like in terms of drafting a receiver with that pick, it's more like a C and maybe a C minus, and the returning aspect obviously an A plus. So I'll just balance it out, say B.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go A minus. And like we said yesterday, especially these first few drafts that we're doing, the most recent ones, this is a report card. A progress report. This is not a final report
it'll
card.
change all the time.
It can still change. But right now, where it stands, I really like the way Marvin's trending in the offense, and Sean finally utilizing him right now. It is just a couple of games at the end of the season, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt from the receiver spot, and then 2 All-Pros as a returner. And this was the very last pick in the second round. So it does, I mean, it's different than the 33rd pick in the draft where it's the first pick in the second round. So I'm going to go with an A minus here. The only thing that would have made it better is just a little more consistency in his first 2 years as a receiver standpoint. But I mean, I think Sean's blamed himself more for that than he's blamed himself for anything else. So I'm gonna trust him with that one there. So I'll go A minus from like a George Payton drafting standpoint. Then the Broncos had 2 third-round picks in this draft. The first one was Drew Sanders.
Is that just an F? Is it a D minus? Like, you haven't gotten anything from him.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't even know what position he plays on top of that. Like, that's
very fair.
You're a long way from saying like that's a good pick. Again, like third round, usually top 100 picks. Goal is you should be getting a starter. Drew Sanders,
67th pick.
Yeah. So we'll call it a D, and that might be generous.
You said it.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty special. Unfortunately, injuries have really hampered him. But Henry, when you kind of throw the fact on we're entering year 3 for him, and we still don't know his position. I don't know how you can go
Not
more
good.
than that. So very fair there. Riley Moss, 16 picks later in the third round, the Broncos get Riley Moss. How you feeling about him?
Tough
2
one.
years in?
So again, top 100 picks, you expect a starter. That's why you use those picks. For him at pick 83, like, you got a starter. It's tough to say how much you count the end of the season because he really did struggle. I mean, that Bengals game, he got beat a lot.
He did.
He got beat by T. Higgins, who is one of the better number 2 receivers in the NFL. One of his toughest matchups. He's also coming off the injury. But again, like, if you want a starter, maybe there's a 50-50 chance that at this point in the draft you're getting a starter, and it's probably more like 60-40. Call it a B plus right now, but big chance to improve next year because he's a solid starter right now.
Yeah. I think the first half of the season before he got hurt, Henry, I mean, he was a great starter. Yeah,
Yep.
he was arguably the best number 2 cornerback in the NFL. Like, he was showing that he had that, not just promise, because he was playing at that high of a level. But, the back end of the season was a little tough. So I'll go A- here, but I am very, very high on Riley Moss. In fact, Henry, there's some mock drafts that I can't wrap my mind around. There's some people that say the Broncos are going to take a corner in the first round. And to me, that blows my mind because I think Riley Moss, not just like should get another year to be a starter opposite Pat. He 100% has deserved it from what he's got. He was injured his rookie season. Then last year he comes on, plays great until he gets hurt. And then, he has a really bad game coming back from injury. His first game back on the road against one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the best receiving cores in the NFL. I do give him a pass. Maybe I'm just being easy on him, but I give him a little bit of a pass there. So I'm going A-. So we're similar there.
I could see them drafting just because that's one of those positions where you just keep adding guys. It's same as defensive line. We talked about in the draft pod last week. Nick Kendall made a great analogy with it's like a campfire. Like those important positions, you don't wait for it to die out before you put more on. You just throw another log on when we get the chance. And they have other needs, but again, like Riley could play in the slot too. New guy could play in the slot. You give the new guy some time off. Inevitably, your starter is going to miss some time. Like Riley looked good. It just, again, that start of the season where he's like, I'm so close to making plays, I just haven't quite made them, and they're not going to do it again. And then end the season, like you had a nice little curve in there. You just need to see that middle part for a full year, and then you'd say, yep, A+, we're happy. We love it. 6th
round pick, J.L. Skinner. Core special teams guy. Hasn't done much on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. C+ probably.
Exactly.
Maybe even more. Because again, it's a 6th round pick. Like,
I'm going C+ personally.
Yeah. And you saw him get on the field a little bit in some of those packages. Good special teams player is generally a pretty good outcome. It's a great outcome for a 7th rounder. It's solid for a 6th rounder. C+, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is one where we say like by the end of next year, it's more like an A- because he's at least like a third safety who flashed at some point on top of being good at special teams.
Sure. And then final pick, Alex Forsyth, the 7th round pick.
Again, I mean, everybody thinks about the one play. And so for a 7th round, like that impacted the game more than anything else he's ever done as a Bronco, unfortunately. And it cost him a big win on top of that. At the same time, when he got a couple starts this year, he looked good. Like he looked like he could be an NFL center. You didn't see much drop off at all from Luke Wattenberg. I mean, that's another one where we were having conversations about should Alex Forsyth be the starter going forward. So I definitely think there's like the arrow is pointing up. Like it's somebody you want to see more from. He also cost you a game. So I'll just say C-.
Dang, I'm not going to let that one play hold 2 full years against him in terms of like grading the pick here. I'm going to go B. I think you've gotten so much more out of him, and I think you could get so much more out of him for being a 7th rounder. It is fair to bring up that one game, but I think that the pick has been more valuable than a traditional 7th round pick.
Yeah. I mean, it was 2 starts, right? Well, I think it was 2 starts.
Yes.
With Wattenberg gone.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
he's played in
good.
17 games as a 7th round pick in his first 2 seasons. It's pretty impressive in my opinion. Okay, so Henry, let's wrap this up.
Yep.
What draft grade are you giving the Broncos for 2023?
B-.
And I'm going to go very close here. I'm just going to go B.
Yeah. I might like yours better.
Marvin Mims holding the team or holding the class up. Riley Moss also there.
Yep.
And then you have had contributions on special teams from JL and Alex Forsyth. And of course, Marvin Mims blowing that out of the water. I'm curious to see the further we go back where things are going to be with these draft classes. We're going to continue this tomorrow. Looking at the 2022 draft, let us know what grade you would give. Of course, Broncos didn't have a first-round pick. This was the Nick Bonito, Greg Dulcich draft, and there's some very interesting names on here. Henry, this is the opposite of the draft that we just went. This is like 10 guys in the draft. Still no first-round pick. We've got St. Patty's Day at All City.
Wow.
If you want to join us, you can join us at the bar, but you can also join us with some merch. So check us out and get your merch. It's in the link in our description. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow. Fun show. We're going to be diving into some draft stuff with our draft expert, Fran Duffy. We will see you tomorrow, 11 a.m. on the DNVR Broncos podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.